What up, Alabama Nation? This is RBT coming at you with a bye week type recap video of the season so far. This is week 6, and this is our bye week. We have the Missouri Tigers coming up next week, so I'm not gonna talk about that in this game really. This video. Um, I'll save that for next week. But I will go ahead and say about the Missouri Tigers, just get this out of the way. I know in my full Alabama season preview that I uploaded um, right before the season, I did say our one loss I think was going to come against Missouri Tigers, and now that's not the case anymore. Missouri's definitely disappointed me, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But where to start? Number one in the country. You don't get any better than that, right? Watching this team, I say that we're a great team. We're the best team in the country. Yeah, all that. But we don't have the dominance like we did last year. That's not saying, if you can follow me here, that's not saying we can be better than we were last year. I'm just saying we're not as dominant as we were last year, if that can make any sense. Like, we make more turnovers, we can throw the ball better, we limit our mistakes, we can run the ball not as effectively as we did last year, but we have a better offensive line. Even though that really hasn't showed, honestly, so far in the season, our offensive line has actually kind of struggled to a point. But with what I just said, we create way more turnovers, but our defense isn't as dominant as we were last year. We can't run the ball at will like we did last year. But what's compensated for that is A.J. McCarron's thrown no picks this year, and on defense we're creating way more turnovers. Like, how can I put this? We don't just watching our defense last year. There is the wow factor about it. You could watch us get 3 straight. They could run the ball 3 straight times for no gain, and you just be like, wow, just absolutely just make your jaw drop. This year, teams can run on us. They really can. In the Ole Miss game, I think I stressed this in my video. They're running the zone read on us on their wheel. They could run it to the outside every single time, and nobody'd stop them. They throw a little halfback pass to the outside, nobody'd stop them. It is kind of picky to say all this because we are number 1 in the country right now statistically in points against. I think we're giving up 7 points a game now, and a lot of those touchdowns were late in games and whatnot. But like I said, we're just not as dominant as we were last year, but we can be better this year, if that can make any sense. Hopefully you follow that there. A.J. McCarron, he's having a good year. We gave up a lot of sacks this year, and that's not really to the fault of our offensive line. I really, really, really hope my dog shuts up. But our offensive line is not doing that bad. We're giving up a lot of sacks, but a lot of it's due to the fact that A.J. McCarron is holding the ball way, way, way too long. He doesn't know how to throw it away. I think he's really scared to mess up his stats. That, I guess, isn't really a bad thing because he doesn't create turnovers and forces the ball, but sometimes it's kind of obvious that the whole point of him doing what he does is just not to throw an interception. And sometimes you have to try to make plays. Trying to make plays and forcing the ball is not necessarily the same thing. He's holding the ball for too long. He's throwing way too many dump off passes. That's exactly what he did last year. He's not throwing the ball downfield. I think last game we went through one or two times down the field. And if we're gonna want to be able to beat teams like LSU, we're gonna have to do that a lot more than 1 or 2 times a game, because that really helps open up our offense and kind of backs off the when we start to be able to throw the ball downfield effectively. That means teams will not crowd the box as much as they do now, which will open up our run game, which will make it a lot easier for our offensive line to block. Instead of having to block one guy, then instead of having to block 2 times at times, just about every single time I have to block only one guy, and that makes worlds of difference. Came out today that DeAndre White and D Hart are out for the season. It kind of is a stinger because our running back depth, you look at us before the season, are like they have the most some people would even say, go to the point to say, we have one of the most talented running back. We have the most talented depth at running back that they've ever seen. But now we lost our second string running back in Justin Fowler and our third, fourth string in D Hart. So I mean, now you're down to Eddie Lacy, who's not been performing that well this year, C.J. Yeldon, who's been a surprise, and Kenyon Drake, who's looked pretty good late in games. And Ben Howell, the white guy, is probably moved to fourth string. Possibly either Blake Sims or Brent Callaway to provide depth could play running back. If I was Nick Saban, I would out of those two, I'd have Brent Callaway. I actually do like the little package we have with Blake Sims at quarterback, and I wouldn't want to take him away from that, because if we ever do struggle in a game where we can get nothing on offense, that really could help us out and provide a spark, possibly move the chains in a team like LSU if we can't move the ball with our traditional offense. But yeah, and Danger White's out now, but that's not as big as an injury as the heart injury is, because we have talented wide receivers all down the board. You saw Amari Cooper step up, Kevin Norwood, you can just keep naming them, Kenny Bell. But oh yeah, I'd like to brag here for a second, because I did say in my prediction video before the season that my bold prediction was that Amari Cooper was going to lead this team in receiving yards. And looking at the stats right now, Amari Cooper is leading the team with 222 receiving yards, and in second is Kevin Norwood with 179. So he's got a pretty big, decent lead, and leading the team in reception yards. So yeah, I told you so. I don't really think there's too much else to talk about. I think I've covered everything. A Michigan game looked pretty good, kind of aggravated me a few times. That's really where I saw we just don't have an identity. I mean, it's kind of weird thinking about it, because we can possibly go throughout the season and win the national championship without a specific identity. Last year we had the identity in Trent Richardson with our dominant defense, but we just don't have that now. It's just we find ways to dominate teams, whether it be turnovers, big plays on special teams, stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't really matter how you win. It's just we don't have the identity. I mean, we can, like I said, we can go to the national championship, win the national championship. Don't necessarily have to have an identity, but it's just strange watching that compared to our teams of years past. So hopefully you're following me through all this, because it is kind of philosophical nonsense I'm throwing out there, but that's my opinion and everything that's going on. And I guess the last thing there is to talk about schedule. The only Tennessee game is gonna be a tough game. Missouri can be a tough game playing in Columbia. Mississippi State will be tough, but it's in Bryant-Denny. And Texas A&M should be no problem. Auburn should be no problem. Western Carolina might beat us. I'm just kidding. LSU right now, I really don't see any possible losses on the rest of our schedule compared to how we played so far. Like, seriously, because LSU, I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know if it's just the offense is just plain and ugly. I don't know if their defense is struggling. I mean, you don't give up 22 points to Towson, seriously. And they just if you would have asked me if who would have won between Alabama and LSU after the Washington LSU game when they won 44-3, I would have said LSU probably by a touchdown or more, honestly. But now I would say we'd win this game probably by 2 touchdowns, completely honest. So that's that. I'm gonna stop here. I got a bunch of stuff to do, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Just a little talk on the bye week. I'll be back next week with my Missouri video. See you guys later. As always, roll tide, go Sox, and go Titans. See you. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you never miss an upload. Later.